All right, we are live. We have the new women's logo over one of my shoulders there, which is awesome. I love it. Uh, but we are here with another amazing, great wrestler, wrestling mind, mom, coach, whatever in our country. Raised in Half Moon Bay, California, now in Denver, Colorado. Six-time national team member, 2019 World Team Trials champ, final X runner-up, third at the Olympic trials, 12 and 16, 2008 University World Champ, competes for TMWZ, and there's about 70 other things that she's won too, but that would take the whole show. But welcome, Katherine, Shai. How are you?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Oh my goodness. Thank you for having me. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, first, I'd like to, first of all, welcome. And then I'd like to say this summer has been a little different.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Yeah. How has it affected your training? I know that, well, obviously you were training to go to Rio, right? And then
Yeah, well, for Tokyo. Yeah.
Tokyo. Oh, yeah, Rio was 16, right?
Yeah. Sometimes I do the same thing. Every once in a while, I'm like, Rio. My husband's like, no, hun, Tokyo. I'm like, oh yeah. Like you literally have to like reset your mind. I'm like, where's the new place? But mostly you just mean the Olympics, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a little different here. I think it's a testament. Like I'm literally doing this in my car right now because I'm like I can't really go into places and
No more sitting at Starbucks doing a live, right?
I know. Well, actually, I came and I found a Starbucks, but it's inside the Safeway. So I'm like, I'm gonna be sweating in the car for all of you guys. This is my sauna session right now. I'm not kidding.
Oh, nice.
I'm already sweating. I plan on it later, but
that's weird. And Colorado is usually not sweating time, but
no, it's been hot. It's been like 80s, 90s.
Oof. I tell people Colorado's the best kept secret.
Oh, yeah. Right. 300 days of sunshine. Except
Yes.
we just get a lot of dryness, so we have fires right now. So that's not.
Oh man. So do you spend a lot of time at the USA wrestling or
So that's kind of part of the reason I'm in my car. So I came down to Colorado Springs from Denver to train at the location that we are training at. So it's not at the training center right now. So where I was, my Wi-Fi was really finicky. Like I could not connect at all. So I'm like, well, I'm just gonna drive somewhere, find a Starbucks. But yeah. So normally I definitely kind of split my time, but it had mostly been like I'd come down for camps, or sometimes I'd come down for like just kind of like a few days. So right now I'm coming down for today and tomorrow, and I'll do the practices here with the national team, the few that we kind of have around, and just trying to like figure out training. Really, that's a big part of it. So
yeah, I mean, what was it like when? I mean, I've talked to obviously like college kids and high school kids and coaches at that level when they got the phone call and said, okay, no states or no NCAAs or no. What was it like to hear no Olympics?
Yeah, I mean, twofold. So, first, Olympic trials was postponed like 3 weeks before it was supposed to happen. But because the International Olympic Committee was still saying Olympics were on, it definitely put every Olympic level athlete in that weird predicament because they were like, you're like, stop training now. And I think most of the states, like Colorado pretty quickly went into like a shutdown, into a lockdown situation. And so it was like, hey, you need to be locked down, but the Olympics are still happening, so keep training. So it was like, it was a bizarre time. And for us, we were very aware as soon as the IOC made the announcement that they were going to, make a decision in like 3 weeks. They're like, okay, we're going to take the next month and look through it and see if we can move the Olympics. I think as soon as we heard that night, my husband and I sat down and made like a positives and negatives column because we, for us, it's a totally different thing. It's not just like me, the athlete, making a decision on my own. So we had to kind of sit down. The positives really outweighed the negatives. So we said, all right, if it comes down to it, we'll do another year. And literally the next day they made that announcement. And so I was just happy we had kind of set that into motion already. So it was emotional, but we were prepared.
So what? Glad it was a year and not another 4 years.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
a lot of the athletes may be close to the end. This might be their last push, and 4 more years could really just forget about it, right?
Yeah, definitely. Very thankful that it's just another year.
And man, that's sad and exciting. I know I've talked to some Olympic athletes or that are trying at that level trying to get there, and they're like, "Yeah, we hit the buffet, made some steaks. We were like, it's all right, we can go chow right now."
There's some of that for sure. I mean, I'm just like kind of creature of habit, so I really stick closely to the way that I'm eating already. But it definitely meant that I was like, okay, no weight cut coming up. You know, I was getting pretty close to like starting my weight cut for Olympic trials, like all those things. So,
honey, go get the beer. We're ready.
Right? Yeah, everything changes a little bit, but it's like we were still like on such alert for like what's next. It was, I knew, I'm like, this is not a time to like to the wayside and to like completely shift what I already do. You know, if I'm still training for the Olympics, like I'm still training for the Olympics. So so a little bit of that time, definitely more dessert, that's for sure.
Definitely. So I know that you know, obviously right now women wrestling, it's on the forefront, pushing for more promotion, pay, you know, a lot of the stuff that we saw kind of the Williams sisters go through years ago and push on the tennis scene, and now we're seeing those ladies get their due, rightfully so. I mean, talk about that a little bit. We're starting to see, I mean, we finally saw Flo come through with, I saw some partnership they did with a show or somebody that talks women's wrestling. So
Yeah.
obviously in the right direction.
Yeah. You know, I think that everything I guess kind of has its time and place to a certain extent. You know, I'm definitely not in a position where it's like everybody has to jump on board now or you have to convince everybody. But I do think there's a certain aspect of like just moving forward and treating the sport as a sport. I think we put up a lot of lines and a lot of walls and a lot of barriers. So like, why else are we in this situation with women saying like, hey, we're not getting enough coverage, equal coverage, all these things? Well, we're putting things into categories. And from a social standpoint, we're seeing that quite a lot, right? So I am very thankful for this bizarre, weird time frame we're in because it's bringing all these things to the forefront. So I think without the national team, I think wouldn't be quite as united, and we're pretty united right now, which is pretty cool. So I think there's a lot of excitement and motivation, but a lot of us are still competing. So to push and move forward and to kind of bring on that next generation of what wrestling looks like. And I'm not just saying women's wrestling, like wrestling has an issue altogether, like with the way that we promote and how, you know, you and I were kind of discussing like certain athletes who get exposure, you know, and then, you know, with Daniel, he and I were speaking about just the concept that when he watched the NCAAs, they had to catch up all this backstory in order for him to even understand who these people were. So like we obviously, even with some of our top level athletes, our miss
You're breaking
media.
up.
Oh, am I?
I lost you there for a second. Sorry about that. I see you. You just broke.
See me, but you can't hear me?
I can hear you now, yes.
You can? Okay.
Yeah, a little bit of a delay, but I can hear you. Before we're just kind of breaking up. But I think you see that. I think any sport, the lower side of the brackets aren't as known. You know, like unless you're like a Sam Herring at the home mat advantage, you're not nerding out to that level, right? So I think like I grew up watching tennis, So I knew some people sprinkled in, but for the most part, you watch the lower rounds and you're like, oh, who's that? I don't know who that is, right? And so of course they're going to showcase Federer and the Williams sisters and things like that. But yeah, I think and I don't know because I only 2.5 years in this, but I do think you were seeing, and which is why I started this show too, because I wanted people to know wrestling, everything. I didn't want them just to know the Iowa guys or the Penn State guys or the Ohio State guys. I wanted them to know, there's so many kids that I had met in my small journey with my son that wouldn't be here without wrestling, So I think that story is bigger than that. So there's got to be stories in the NCAA that we're missing because they just don't know that kid just made the NCAAs and he was a JUCO athlete last year and now he's there on the biggest stage. Why don't we hear about that guy, right?
Yeah.
Because they're more concerned about showing us, the big names, which we want to see the big names too. That's what pays the bills, right? But I think you can be a little bit more, I don't know, you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and can you hear me okay? Is this my husband?
Yes.
Okay, good. I think that surprisingly, a pretty good example is like with the UFC. There's a lot of names, a lot of names. And, you get the opportunity to kind of like showcase each person. It's like the format is helpful, right?
Yes.
But I think we need to like take a look at how they do interviews or how they pull people in and how they keep reminding you of like the story and they can kind of build into that. But there's just, with your show, like there's a lot of different ways we can keep getting creative with how we give athletes exposure. And, this time has just shown like so many people popped up with all these awesome podcasts, like the needs are being filled. And I keep encouraging the wrestling community to like stop and think about like, are we victims of the system or are we going to be proactive and be like, hey, wrestling deserves more and we can bring it. We don't need to wait for somebody else to come in and do it for us. Like we as a community can do this. So there's a lot to be had.
Would you say that we, like with the UFC, for so long we only knew the names that were going to be on UFC 1 or UFC 2 or like the big events. When Dana White started that Contender Series, where he was giving whoever a shot, not whoever, I mean, he goes out and finds, but names that he knew, but the world didn't know. So how do we create a UFC that can also have a Contender Series for wrestling? Like, how can we, because can you have an open tournament to get someone onto the US team or onto the world team? Because there's so many sanctionings, or how can something like that, that's how my mind is thinking, like, how wouldn't there have to be like a pro wrestling league in order for us to now showcase maybe a Contender Series that can bring these? Because let's be honest, we're losing a lot of people to the MMA world at a younger age because they know they can go there and get showcased and get their opportunity, right?
Yeah, I think that starting with having more cards like wrestling one-off features could be a way that we start seeing a shift in that, because maybe it brings more monetization like to the athletes, to businesses. I don't think we have to mimic or make things look exactly the same as the UFC, because I think we are run different, right? We compete year round. It's like kind of just a different animal, right? So I think there's a lot of different ways that we could look at an event coming up and actually like build into it, where like we're actually interviewing or like pulling people who are about to compete onto a show, whatever, something short and sweet. How you doing? How's your weight? What weight are you going? Like there's just like some lead up and some follow through, right? Like most of the time it's like that event just happened and here's the results, right? We don't really hear from the athletes. We don't get much of a build up. And I think that there could be a way that you like marry the two worlds together. Like maybe more athletes will like have a little bit of a balance. Like some athletes will do more of a the card series and want to compete in that way, and then some athletes will be like, no, I want to go Olympic route and then do a card every once in a while. Like maybe that's an option moving forward and actually gives a wrestler who still wants to compete the opportunity, but not necessarily compete for the Olympic team. I mean, who knows, right? I think all these are good ideas.
Yeah, because there's people that decide to go after the money and not after the medals, right? It happens.
Yes.
Yeah, you know, some of my goals, and you know, maybe one day at a larger level, but I want to get back into tournaments and out to stuff right now. I've just been home the whole time doing this, but yeah, part of my goals is to get into the gyms again and but be at some of these tournaments and kind of do a little bit of that since I am a little different. So I want to bring a different style. Like I want to grab a kid when he's, you know, he knows who he's got next. He hasn't heard of him yet. Let's talk to him a little bit. Or even when they get off the mat, grab him in the middle of that emotion. You know, like my kid used to say, I learned a lot from him. He's like, you need to give me 10 minutes. Don't talk to me for 10 minutes after a match. I'm like, all right, got it. Lesson learned, right? Because whether he wins or loses, those 10 minutes coming off the adrenaline rush. But yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to that. I've had Bud Hennenbaugh and he's been awesome. And he's invited me to some different things if they happen next year, which are larger tournaments. So I'll get to experience that and it'll be fun. But really, I just created a platform for people to hear from everyone. So, and then, you know, I shifted a little bit and I added the women's side to it. And I've been lucky enough to get some cool women on. So it's been fun. It's been good. And I hope we can see that grow. And I hope we can see the platform get bigger. I mean, it's 2020. Like, what the hell are we doing?
Well, I mean, we talked about that a lot, right? Like we bring those things up often. How's my connection?
It's a little screwy, but we're getting it done.
I'm trying to see if I can connect.
Yeah, we just have a little bit of a delay, but it's working.
Yeah. Okay.
The delays suck because then I cut people off all the time, and then people are like, you talk over people." I'm like, I don't mean to. It's the delay. Like, if you don't, yeah. Well, obviously, your evolution as a wrestler. I mean, you started. You had a dad that was just okay. 1956 and 1960 Olympic wrestler, freestyle and Greco. So he obviously kicked ass during his lifetime, and got you and your sister in it, right? Is something that I read. So your evolution has been from, you know, I saw a funny story where your mom was like, I don't think they're going to do it. So we're just going to put them in water shoes and leotards and see what happens. But so from that point to, you know, here we are, what, 15 years later, 20 years later, and you're still competing at the highest level. And your sister apparently is competitive as well, right? And you are frozen. Well, folks, she's there. We just don't see her. Well, we see her. She's frozen. There she is. Oh, she's moving again.
My connection is unstable.
Yes.
So I think we're back.
Yep.
Is this good? Better?
Yeah. I see you. You're talking. Did you hear did you hear what I said?
I didn't hear the end. I heard we were talking about the water shoes and leotard, and that's
okay. And then of course you and your sister have both competed for what, 15 years now, 20 years? Yeah. And then you took a step away to do the whole mom thing, but now you're back. So man, talk about your evolution and from where you came from to where you are today, and third place in 12, third place just right on the brink. I think looking back, you'll be like, wow, that was a pretty good run. But right now the run is still going. So I talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So it's been a really cool experience. Hopefully my internet, it's still good, right?
So far, we're good.
So far, so good. Okay. Yes. Okay. So, definitely been an interesting journey when your family is so involved. And I had a sister that I could, really watch her like the steps she took and where she went as a wrestler. And, I still jokingly say this, but I really don't embody it anymore. But I used to say like, oh no, the full Fallon curse was my sister was third in Athens trials, third in Beijing trials, and then I was third London 2012, third in Rio. So I was like, oh no.
This is the Shai thing, right?
Well, Shai is my married last name. So it's really the Fulp Allen curse, which is my maiden name.
Oh well. Well, hopefully we'll see you break that curse this year.
Yeah. All in, laughs. But yeah. So having a parent, my father, who was so in love with wrestling, like the man loved wrestling, and there were a lot of times where I didn't always understand his love for the sport. And a lot of this journey has been me figuring out, like, well, what does wrestling mean to me when my family's so involved in it? Like, I knew I loved competing and I loved the challenge of the training. But it really, like, this comeback has been a lot of that exploration. And I just kind of, the itch just came back, and I wanted to feel wrestling again. And I wanted to feel wrestling, I felt like at 2016 Olympic trials, I was wrestling better than I'd ever wrestled before. And it's hard to then walk away from that. And so a lot of my conversations between myself and my husband when I was not competing, pregnant, mom thing, right? A lot of those conversations were like, how could I have treated myself more gently? How could I have progressed in a different way? How could I train differently so my body, I had a lot of injuries. And I know a lot of athletes do, but I think that that's a testimony to sometimes like the physical and emotional breakdown a little bit. There's a lot of factors. So I think analyzing yourself as a human and what really makes you tick, where your motivations come from, and analyzing the things that in your life. I think that this return to sport has been like, can I get rid of those stories? The story that says Sarah and Katherine Fulp Allen always take third Olympic trials, right? Like, those are stories that we start ingraining into our systems, and then we like treat ourselves that way. And usually it's subconscious, right? So there's been a lot of self-exploration, especially during COVID time, to like really dive into these different aspects of myself. And I've been really, really fortunate that my husband has now taken such a huge role in being coach, husband, father. Like, right now, wrestling is all we do and what we do. We're talking about wrestling, we're watching video, we're discussing different things. I'm saying, hey, this practice was really rough, it didn't go how I wanted it. Like, we're just diving into it because we really committed all the way.
Was he a wrestler, or was he involved in wrestling, or is he?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. He wrestled in high school, and then we met at Menlo College, and he wrestled 2 years there.
So it's in his blood too. So that means that does Eli already have a badass headlock, or what?
Right now, he can do a pretty good sprawl, and he likes to run at you and like turn away, the typical I'm gonna pull you down by going the opposite way. So, but he loves it.
Isn't that the first, like, I don't think you have to be a wrestler. I think the first thing kids learn in general is a headlock.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Grabbing, pulling, taking down. I think gymnastics is very close to being in Eli's future, because the kid just wants to do a backflip really bad. I like have to spot him. He always wants to do like, not like a back handspring, but he constantly is asking to do it. And every time we're like near any kind of soft mat, it's like, let me go backwards, upside down. So yeah. Gymnastics is such a good base.
That's fun. So I have a teenager, and he just started 10th grade, and he found wrestling in 7th grade. but early on, if I mentioned the words gymnastics to him, was like, no way, that's for girls, whatever, right? Now it's amazing. The other day, I don't know how the conversation came up. We were all sitting around the living room, and he looked at his mom and he said, when I have a kid, the first thing they're doing is gymnastics, and then they're going to do wrestling. And I
Okay.
was like, interesting. And I was like, where'd that come from? He goes, have you seen that kid, Echemendia? He was a gymnastics person first, and look at him. He's a badass. And I'm like, okay, well, that's good. That's a good start. But I think there's more than just him. But you obviously, I've learned over the time, my 280 shows, that most wrestling minds I've talked to have said, I think there's been a lot of gymnastics and yoga added to the sport to kind of evolve people or the athlete. So it's pretty cool. And I guess that's where all these flips are coming from now, and these crazy, you'll be watching matches, but how the heck did he do that? Like someone will have someone in like a single leg up high and they'll like do something and I'm like, how'd they just do that? Didn't that hurt? No. So man, awesome stuff. Yeah, it was cool to hear him say that because I think that just shows him maturing and getting smarter and understanding that everything has a path, and part of a wrestler's path should be gymnastics, it seems, as far
Definitely.
as what I've learned so far. So,
Yeah.
especially at that age, because if they're at 3 or 4, imagine what they'll do at 9, 10, 11, 12 years old. And,
Yeah.
you know, I watch a lot of these good wrestlers, they can do splits and all this other crazy stuff.
Yeah, and just having that baseline awareness of your body and then the body strength to lift yourself up, to control yourself as you're like moving through space with another person, like that's what our sport is. So having the baseline to control your own body emotions is really big, because I would say the one thing that I see with girls wrestling who are starting young, you'll hear a lot of comments where people are saying like, well, girls wrestling, it's getting better. Well, here's another concept to think about. Like, a lot of these girls have never been exposed to any sort of combat sport ever. Like, they didn't just go do football. They weren't doing, I don't know, what's another, like, it is very natural, as I see with my own son, very natural for those little boys to just like run and ram into each other. Like, Eli is wrestling all the time.
Or ram into anything.
Me
Yeah.
for anything. And I'm like, okay, this is personality, like, and this is also some boy, right? So it's like really natural. So for a lot of girls, like they've never had that kind of exposure or body like gymnastics. Like it's just not happening. So there's an evolution to exposing females to more body awareness. And then, I think in general, like I do feel very honored to be a part of the sport, because for the women, like we're really evolving our techniques too. That's part of it. And that's something that I've been thinking about a lot, because I want to evolve myself and I want to evolve the things I'm able to do. And that comes from like a lot of analyzation, like, and figuring out like, hey, my body can do more. It's back to those stories. I'm going to stop telling myself that this is the story, this is the box I have to fit into, and only high crotches work. Like, so, it's exciting to be a part of the evolution, because the sport in general is evolving.
Yeah, I think that especially on the girls' side, I've been told this. The first person who told me this was Seth Gross. I got invited to a show and he was on it, and he said, wait until you see the next wave of girls coming up. He said, it's going to change everything. He said, they're so good. They're so awesome. And that next wave is really going to change people's minds, hopefully.
Yeah, no, I think it really will.
And that's a good thing. I mean, look what happened. Like we were talking about UFC. I mean, there was one girl that they promoted, and it's evolved to all those little girls that looked up to her and said, I want to be that. And now when I look at a card and I see girls on it, I'm like, I'm looking to see who it is, because I want to see them fight, right? And that's again what we need to see from wrestling. Market those girls, and then we'll be excited to see them on the rooftop or on the flow or on the card. Start to put them on the card. You know, even if it's one match right now, put one match on the card, put two matches on the card. You don't have to have a full card. Let's just start to meet them and start to see them and start to, and then we can go from there. Yeah, but it takes, you know, you got to take one step to walk a mile, right? So
Yeah.
let's take that step and do it. So pretty cool though. I mean, how many sisters have made it that high to that level? I mean, it's got to be, there can't be a ton that have both been top 3 in the world at a given time, right? I mean, that's got to be pretty awesome. I know the story's not over. We're still building it, but when the story is over, it's going to be pretty cool to look back and be like, yo, we were badasses, right?
Yeah, for sure. There's definitely been sisters internationally competing on the world level. I mean, for Japan, the Kawai sisters and the Icho sisters, they've competed together.
And I mean, I know you've got
but
the Gray sisters, right? The Gray sisters they train with each other. But yeah, I mean, how many brothers or sisters just get to do it together at such a high level, right?
Yeah, such a cool experience. Yeah, for sure.
Are you excited to, after you're done being a wrestler, are you excited to give back and become a coach and then parent a wrestler? Does that seem like something that you'll do?
You know, I think coaching will always be a part of what I do. I'm open to whatever, you know, but I'm not sure if I'm going to jump right into like eating. I know how much it takes over your whole world. So really what I want to see out is continuing with Lucha Fit. That's been my project of giving back to wrestling. So diving into that and seeing what I can build, especially like a business within the wrestling community, I think like serves my, my skills really well. And I think I definitely feel a strong excitement, like to creating something really good. That's something that's more media driven. Lucha Fit right now has been like educational resource blog, but it's ready to become whatever, but it's got to be in another year.
And what's that been like, trying to be mom, trying to be Olympic hopeful, trying to be business manager, owner, and then of course life partner of your husband?
Yeah, certain things have to be just taken off your plate, really. Like, I've definitely gotten a lot of help with Lucha Fit and putting some things together, but that has to, it has to quietly hibernate a little bit. And the focus right now is training. And my husband's like full in on that. Like, whenever I need a partner, whenever I need focus, whenever we need to go over video, like, he is there with me all the time. Especially now that he's working from home. It's really great. Like, I love it. And then, yeah, just managing life in general, like having a family, it's a very different thing. But this is very early on to be like, hey, I understand. I have a really strong desire to like handle my life outside of wrestling, if that makes sense. And some athletes take the different perspective of like, I'm not going to handle any of my personal life and all wrestling. So I think that there's good and bad to both. I think I made choices, and now I'm recognizing how I can make choices that get me closer to my goals instead of just being like, hey, I'm not going to go there because it affects my personal life. Like, now I'm like, it's going to affect my personal life. It's going to be hard. Like, right now I'm away from my family. I'm down in the Springs for a day to 2 days. Like, I'm just making choices that are the hard choices, but I've bought in more. So part of that is just figuring out how to manage everything. And I'm very thankful for family that has come out and, stayed with Eli and helped take care of him. Cause that's been
a lot of Eli FaceTime.
A lot of Eli FaceTime. When within the first year of me returning, I knew like I needed like a hard camp, I had coaches who were like, hey, I think the national team's going to Japan in the summer, but I was like, no, I need to get on the national team. Like, I can't just be like, I'm gonna make it. So I actually went to Japan for 20 days, left the whole family, and just went and trained. And Kaori Icho was there. I was at a university. Some of the top level women who are winning the world championships were there. And I just said, I'm going to do it. So there's been a lot of FaceTime calls, but the family's bought in. So that's hugely important on this journey.
I just watched that, is it Helen Margolis? I think I just watched
really?
that. I watched that show on Flow that was just released about her run through life, and kind of sucked the issues that she had to deal with. And I'm sure that's why the women are like, hey, what the F, right? Like, but all things aside, everybody wants to be on the Olympics. But if you're not the starter on the Olympics, is there still passion there and you're rooting for them? Like, for her to upset that girl in the finals, was it the whole women's team going, wow, that's awesome? Were you guys impressed? What was the feeling through the USA Center? Or is it something like, damn, I really wish that was me?
I mean, so, I'm in a perfect position to answer that question because Helen is who I lost to at Olympic trials.
Well, I had no idea, but
yeah. So, and obviously, like, a hard loss, and it was in semis, and so I think it's all very bittersweet, right? Like, obviously I wanted Helen to do well, and I was watching by myself, so there wasn't like I didn't have people around me like excited, right? I was by myself, my dog, but it's at the start of that match, I was sitting there thinking, I'm like, I think Helen's gonna do this. I think she's gonna upset Yoshida. And at that moment, like, what's an upset? Like, it's at that moment, it's just wrestling. So I think that Helen has really opened up the floodgates for all of us to be like, hey, rewrite the story, like, make the story your own, and don't keep thinking that Japan's the best, they're better than us no matter what, yada yada yada. Like, we have to rewrite those stories, and it, man, it takes a lot of work.
She really had to make herself uncomfortable to accomplish those goals. So yes. I think that's a lot where you come back to you now. You've been doing that with yourself, trying to get out of that box and do some things differently. And she talked about the scary time going to Russia and doing all that stuff, but I'm sure going anywhere around the world is uncomfortable. But yeah, it was cool to see. So, I wish there was more shows like that on more women that we can learn their journey. Obviously, hers was special, so they showcased it. But like you said, that's pretty cool. I was wondering that. I'm wondering if, like, as a fan in the world, and we're USA, right? So we're like, hell yeah, she did it, right? But when you're on that team, I always wonder that. But I've talked to some people that were alternates on Olympic teams, and they said it was more fun being the alternate than being the athlete because they got to experience I actually got to sit in the stands and watch the Olympics for once and experience that and meet so many people. I got to go watch the diving and the swimming and different things I got to experience. So obviously they all wish they were the athlete, but it's still got to be pretty cool to be there.
Yeah. I think, life experience is life experience. And here's part of, like, some of my issues with what we do with wrestlers and the way we promote wrestlers is, unless you've made an Olympic team and then won the Olympics and then won it again, like, we're like, oh, now you get a shoe, or, like, we really put things so high that we're like, not only are we teaching everybody that you can only be valued if you have, like, all these certain, if you fit into this box, right? But then you're kind of like making it an unreal expectation in order for someone to be, like, successful within our sport. So let's come back to, like, experience is experience. So it's more about being in the moment of the experiences and saying, like, I loved being there, it was okay, and that's something I've had to learn. I've had to learn about how can I be really grateful and happy for my opponents and my teammates, because sometimes it's caught up in that, oh man, like I wish that was me, even if it's not even the same weight, like, and that clouds your kind of like clouds your soul a little bit, right? When you're just feeling like, hey, it's not me, or I didn't get it, or I didn't get the opportunity. We have so few opportunities of like sponsorship and all these different things. It's always been like, oh my gosh, I got something, I'm not telling anybody. So I've had to, like, big time, I've had to encourage other women to say like, hey, share what you're making from the sponsor. So now another woman can, like, when she gets an Adidas sponsorship, she can be like, hey, I know so and so makes this. Like, we can't keep hiding these things from each other. So it's totally like a journey of like, can we be grateful for each other?
And I think that I'm sorry, I talked over you again. You were breaking up.
It's all good.
My apologies.
I'm so bummed that I'm still breaking up, but no, go ahead.
That's okay. Yeah, but I think she talked about that because in the 12 trial, she got beat. And she said that the coach was like, hey, come on, you got to be the alternate. And she's like, at first she's like, no, fuck that. I don't want to see her win. No way. And then he was like, wait a second. Okay, we're on the same team now. Like, come on. And you gotta put that aside. I'm sure the same thing happened. You have wrestle offs at colleges, you have wrestle offs at high schools. You lose the wrestle off, you can't be like, that's it, fuck it, I quit. You gotta come back and be like, all right, we gotta do this. But that's, yeah, what an awesome journey to talk to all these ladies. And that's one of the reasons why I started the show is I didn't see people talking to everyone. I only saw people talking to who they presumed was someone. And I felt like everybody in wrestling is someone, and everybody in this sport seems to have a great journey and a great voice. And it didn't matter if you were a kid or an old man or an old lady or a young lady or a woman or whatever. I just really wanted to offer a platform for wrestlers and people that have lived this life, because I think I've learned just in my short couple of years that, I mean, I've met kids that tell me without this, I'd probably be in gangs. Without this, I'd probably be dead. Without this, I wouldn't have gotten a college education. I wouldn't have been able to go from a 2.1 GPA to a 3.5 when I graduated. And people think, what does that have to do with wrestling? You just studied harder. Yeah, but I studied harder because I fell in love with a sport that told me, you don't get grades, you can't wrestle. So I knew that now I had to learn the discipline, not only on a mat, but I had to learn a discipline in a classroom, because if I don't, I'm going to lose everything I love. So why not make it work? And you hear stories like that and you're like, interesting. It's crazy how the coach is so influential on your life.
Yeah, I mean, all of that. Wrestling is, sport and love, and finding something that really tears down your layers. That's what this is really all about.
That's so much fun. And so on a not wrestling side, apparently you like to cook a lot. You and your husband do like cooking from scratch, cooking adventures. What's that like at home? So is that kind of your guys' way of like checking out of the world and just having a little fun?
Yeah, I have always loved cooking. I've been obsessed with it since I was like a little kid, watching cooking shows. And when I cut weight, I watch like Food Network and anything food related, and that's what I'm watching. So you'll know before the next competition, I'm watching Food Network. But it ebbs and flows right now, because like I have to eat like a very particular way, and so we do a lot of meal prepping and still try to play with that. But yeah, we whatever it is, we'll try to do it from scratch, whether it's like pizza dough from scratch to the point where we watched the whole Bon Appetit. They did like the perfect pizza. We like followed the whole thing. We didn't go as far as like making our own cheese, but we got pretty close. So
you get Eli to get on the table and kind of do the dough thing with his hands, and
yeah, except he just like, you have to be gentle, and he just wants to
slap you on the face. Yeah.
He just wants to smash everything, so it's not always helpful.
But he likes the best when they're that age. Okay, we're making cookies. You can just make dough balls.
Yeah.
I saw something. I'm trying to figure out TikTok, because I guess people are on TikTok, so I should post stuff there. I'm figuring it out, but I saw this really cool thing. Speaking of cooking, I don't know if you saw this, they took an ice tray and they put the cookie dough in the ice tray. And then they use that so they stack up ice trays and they put them in the freezer. And you can keep them in the freezer up to 2 months. So now when you want to make cookies, you just pop it right out of the ice tray. It's already the right size and boom. But what's cool is on some of the ice trays, they would put like a piece of chocolate in between the cookie dough to freeze, or marshmallows, or what, caramel. So now that'll be fun for you and Eli to do.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a good idea.
That's a good little fun thing for that. Things we do with our kids.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's awesome. Well, we just kind of went down like rabbit holes and we just spidered along. I'm trying to see how long I can make you sauna in there.
I know. I am sweating. I hope you guys can see. I am sweating for Ward Wrestling Live.
Yes, this is where we sweat. Okay, well, before we get into the 10 questions, I know you've got some upcoming battles for the Olympic spot. What does that look like?
Yeah, so I think this upcoming, it'll be really interesting. I wonder if people will be shifting weights, like who knows. And it's definitely going to be an interesting evolution having an additional year. Like it's going to be a whole different animal, I've battled with a lot of these women. I would say, Jakara is the sit out right now, and
Lost you. You are not talking. You are not there. Well, everybody, that is the great Katherine Shai, but she's frozen right now. Dun, 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 dun. Oh, now she's gone. Where'd she go? All right, well, we're on with Katherine Shai. She's talking about some upcoming battles for Olympic spots. And she's been sitting in her car trying to get some better Wi-Fi. I'm sure she'll be back on here in just a moment. We'll get her back on. Here she comes. I see her. Aha!
Oh, are we really back?
We're back.
Woo! Okay, wow, I'm shocked.
My shows get so much more interesting as we go. People are like, "Sorry you lost me." I'm like, "I don't know. That was fun. I don't care. Whatever." You ended at Jakara is the sit out right now.
Yes, yeah. So Jakara's a sit out right now. We wrestled for the first time, like since I've returned. We wrestled at the Pan Am qualifier, and I think like there were a lot of pieces that I was like, okay, like I see where this is at. I see where I'm at and what I need to work on, and that's really been like the focus during COVID has been like, hey, let's keep analyzing these pieces that I felt like were missing, and fine tune these areas and really start diving into like what does it really mean to like dominate an opponent? Like how do I evolve my wrestling so that I'm not just in my own opinion, if I'm like, oh no, I'm getting too one-dimensional, how do I evolve that and make changes? So that's been really exciting. So I think it'll 53 kilos will be really exciting to watch for sure.
It'll be fun. Bud Hannenball, she froze up. Well, she's back now, Bud. And then some guy named Mike Shea was like, "Oh man."
Who's that guy?
Yeah, he and some little dude are watching, I think.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, it'll be exciting, and I've gotten to meet so many great people, so I'm going to figure out how I can at least watch, because I've met so many awesome people that have supported the show and come on and given me the ability to meet them, and I'm excited to see them wrestle now. I'm going to be like, how am I going to, like, that girl's going against that girl. I talked to both of them. Okay, I hope one of them win. think I'm going to do that, right? I got to root for it. It's going to be
I'll
awesome.
let it
Well,
be what it's gonna be, and then secretly
yes,
we're just rooting for
I'll
Katherine.
wear one. I'll get like one of those fan divided shirts, and I'll have like some newfound love on there.
Maybe.
I know you talked about cutting weight. What has it meant to be part of Honey Stinger?
Oh, honey stinger. You threw in a little loophole there.
I
Uh,
figured I'd throw out one of your sponsors for you.
yeah. Okay, well, we could dive into some awesome sponsors. Honey Stinger is definitely like a new one that I've been involved with. So not for very long, but I do think they have some awesome stuff for cutting weight for wrestlers. And now that we have 2-day weigh-ins, like for me, managing my weight, it's never been an issue. I think a lot of people always assume that I'm pretty tall, so I'm 5'6". Apparently, according to Flow Wrestling, I'm the tallest woman in the world. What can I say?
That's okay.
So I'm I'm just under 5'7". So I'm pretty tall for 53 kilos. But for me, like I have the body type where like I have to really work to keep the muscle on. And so my body's like, oh, I'll just keep settling down lower, like not in like a more like in a lose muscle mass kind of way, so that's been a totally interesting. I've posted a few times on my Instagram about like kind of where like basically the way I looked in college and versus now, and there's a lot that I've learned. It's been a really interesting journey on that, learning like body mass and muscle mass and how to actually keep it on.
Awesome.
So yeah, it becomes really important like when you're at competition to really have the right things. And for me, that first day, it's got to be a lot of like quick, fast, sugar really. So actually Honey Stinger stuff has been really awesome. Like
That's awesome. And who
yeah,
else? You've got Cliff Keen, right?
yes, yeah. Cliff Keen has been really, really incredible. I'm working with Cliff Keen on creating their women's line, and they're super enthusiastic about putting that together and making it something that women really want to wear. And I think it's lacking within the wrestling gear market to market to female wrestlers. Like this sport is growing so fast for the women. Like, so I'm excited for what Cliff Keen's doing, and they've just been really, really good to me, really incredible.
And that has been a lot of why you started Lucha Fit. And I think I spoke to Afsoon, and she said, I think it was Afsoon and Geneva. They both said that, singlets aren't high enough. Or also Ware Bonnie. She said, every time we get singlets out, they're too low for the girls. We don't have a girls singlet. We have to fight to get that. Then we're in weigh-ins and the refs are giving us a hard time, and just come on. And, and then being asked, like, do we have our undergarment on properly? Like, do you ask boys if they have boxers or briefs on? Like, what the hell is this? So, yeah, I think singlets can evolve, and, there's different things that, and it's hard, right? Because you got to weigh in now with singlets. So how much can you add to a woman's singlet to do whatever, or to a man's singlet to do whatever? Because it's hard enough to get to your weight to have to adjust for that. But
Yep.
That's fun. I figured I'd ask you that since you have your sponsors there. And I have had Jay LaValle has been doing some clinics on my show, and he's with Cliff Keen. So
Nice. Yeah.
it's fun. If they want to help the show, I'm here. Don't worry. But all right, we'll do the 10 questions. We'll have fun. We've made you burn enough. We have froze enough. We're good now. Don't worry. The good weather is coming to you in Colorado, I'm sure. All right, so Dave Schultz or Bill Farrell Memorial?
Ooh. Dave Schultz, because I won it 16.
There we go. So your favorite food is pizza. So deep dish or thin crust?
Okay, neither. Just like a good, not thin and not deep dish. I need like a good crust.
And they have to have mushrooms on it, right?
Yes, but not just like button mushrooms. We're talking like schmancy mushrooms.
Big portobellos.
No, like shiitakes, and I don't even know. Shiitake is kind of my thing right now. Shiitake.
Huh.
Yeah.
Mike Shea, deep dish is not pizza. All right, you got a partner there.
I do.
All right, the Clip-In Lady Open or the Matteo Pella, whatever, in Italy.
Matteo Pellicone. I mean, that was the first time we'd had that tournament, I think. I'm gonna say Clip-On. It's such a killer tournament. So many ladies come and just kill it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, you're in Colorado. You go bison or lamb?
Bison.
Bison. All right. I'm going to totally mess up all these names. Okay. I went and looked at tournaments you wrestled in, so I tried to do something different here. The Guelph Open or the Mongolia Open?
Ooh, Mongolian Open.
It's really freaking cool. If you're like a little girl out there and you're listening to this, look how many places you've been around the world because she wrestles.
Yes. Mongolia. There's not much there, but it's a cool country.
Pretty damn cool. All right. A good lobster roll or lobster mac and cheese?
Lobster mac and cheese.
All right. The Sunkissed Kids International or the Dan Kielov International?
Oh.
Taking you way back?
Yeah. Did I wrestle in the Dan Kielov?
You did.
I did? What year? I don't know.
I can look it up.
No. Let's go Sunkissed. I have a lot of really good memories in college going to Sunkissed Kids. Yeah.
All right, up there in Colorado again, cod or trout?
Trout.
They do really good with that. We go up to like Vail, Beaver Creek area every year, and whenever I'm up there, I always get some trout because you can't get it better anywhere else. So.
Oh, good. And we've caught our own and cooked it, so I'm with it. I'm with you.
Even better. I love the streams up there because you don't have to worry about anything but like bears. Down here, if I go into, that's it. But down here, if I go into like a stream or a creek, there's alligators and poisonous snakes and all that stuff. And I'm like, I prefer Colorado. They can't live up in the altitude, so I'm good. And I can see a bear coming. I don't know if I'll get away from it, but at least I know, look, there's one. I better go the other way.
Please curl up.
Yeah. Say, run faster than the person I'm fishing with.
Yeah.
Hopefully. All right. New York AC or Hargobind International?
Maybe Hargobind.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome. There was so many more I could have put down that you wrestled in, but I didn't. I wanted to go around the world with them. I didn't want to go like USA or world, like things like that. I wanted to go. All right, last one. We'll shout out one of your sponsors. Honey Stinger Waffles or Honey Stinger Chews?
Ooh, the waffles for when I'm both is the answer, but the waffles I'm like, I need a pick-me-up snack, and then the chews for competition. They're so good for competition.
You have like a garage full of that shit?
Not so much right now. My stuff is dwindling for sure.
You're like, honey, go get a bag of those chews. I'm going on a tournament.
Yep.
Or you find your son bouncing off the walls because he's gotten into your waffles, and now
that's who I have to hide them from. Exactly.
Hey, why does he look like one of those superheroes running up and down the steps?
He already thinks he's a superhero, so that might be a dangerous mixture. He's Spider-Man currently. Spider-Man or a ninja?
Ninja's fun.
But he kind of thinks they're the same. He's like, Spider-Man ninja, I'm a ninja. I don't know. Yeah.
Well, I hope it was fun. I hope I only got off topic every time and we went down all different rabbit holes, but it was super cool to meet you. Obviously out there doing big things, kicking ass in life, and that's awesome. And keep doing it big, and just love getting to meet you. So thank you so much for allowing me to have you on.
Yeah, thank you so much. This is great. Keep doing what you're doing. We need this in wrestling. So.
Yes, please, and invite your friends. Well, you know how to get a hold of me.
I will.
Thank you so much. And I hope you can breathe. You can put the window down now and cranked up the AC and do your thing.
Exactly. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.